want a Q&A. I actually want to hear what you care about that doesn't have to be stated in the form of a question. Because what matters to me and why I'm running for Congress is I am running for Congress to raise up the voices of people who have been shut out. And everywhere I go in this district, I hear people who are angry, people who feel like they got some ideas, but they don't matter in the political system. Parents, I talk to parents all the time. I've been very involved in the opt-out movement. Parents and teachers who talk about how they feel like I'm the mom of a special needs kid and I feel like my voice isn't being heard on Common Core or on basic curriculum. I talk to farmers who have had to shut down their operations because our entire economic system isn't designed to support those farmers of the middle that are essential to a thriving rural economy. Those mid-scale farmers with gross incomes between $40,000 and $400,000 who reinvest in our communities and they feel like they don't have a voice. I talk to small business owners who can't get a $64,000 loan to bring on new staff, fix the bathroom, and they feel like both Republicans and Democrats have left them behind. They just don't feel like they have a voice in our current political system. And then people who 20 years ago would have, and been right to, expect that they could have a secure, well-paid job with benefits, who are now working 25 hours a week, maybe having to take on another job, not secure in their job, don't have benefits, and feel like, again, the system isn't working for them. So I'm running to raise up those voices. And let me tell you a little bit about who I am and then a little bit about some policy issues that I care about. But at core, we're talking about a fundamental brokenness in Congress, a fundamental corruption in the system, and the ways in which I believe together we can take that off. So I grew up in a dairy community in rural Vermont. My last name is not made up. Teachout is Dutch. It came from Teachout. I'm an amateur genealogist, but it looks like the legend is we came up the Hudson and settled first in Abraham Teachout settled in Schenectady and then died Abraham Teachout in Dutchess. And then farther upstate New York and rural Vermont, which is where I'm from. So I was a teenager during the dairy crisis of the 80s and have been very influenced by seeing what rural communities have gone through, trying to make a thriving economy with trade deals that aren't helping us and a federal policy that's subsidizing big ag but leaving the farmer of the middle behind. I went to college, and then my first job out of college was I was a special ed teacher's aide. I care a lot about education. I believe every kid needs art, music, sports, recess. Yep. And that we should be supporting teachers through mentoring and teacher centers, not pushing down a high-stakes testing regime with Common Core that just isn't working and really demoralizing our teachers. And then for the last, I went to law school. I hope you forgive me. Really for the last 12 years, in different ways, I have been fighting for the soul of our democracy. I was the first national director of the Sunlight Foundation, which is one of the largest anti-corruption organizations in the country, fighting for transparency in federal contracting. We worked Republicans, Democrats, everybody. We just want to know who's getting our contracts, right? After that, after the crash of 2008, I co-founded a group dedicated to breaking up big banks in the wake of the crash. I had a day job, but I always believe in organizing in fact, organizing in fact. That's the way we get things done. So we came together and got 90,000 petition signatures to Harry Reid on Glass-Steagall and other bills to break up big banks. We brought citizen lobbyists to Washington, and we held 178 events around the country with people educating each other about what we should do in terms of financial reform. We got some things done in Dodd-Frank collectively. We worked with 250 other labor and consumer groups. We still got a long ways to go. But what we got done because people's voices were raised up and we shared what we cared about. What we still have to do, which really affects this area, is get those banks to lend. To lend to local small businesses and medium-scale farmers. You can get a $2 million loan, but you can't get a $60,000 loan. And then you may know, I ran for governor a couple of years ago. And I was so proud to work with what I think is one of the most extraordinary communities, grassroots communities in recent history, that led one of the most extraordinary environmental victories in the last several decades, which is the fracking ban in New York State. I know there are people in this room who did something on that, so thank you. But how did that happen? It wasn't supposed to happen, right? If you'd asked, the Las Vegas odds on a fracking ban in New York State in 2011, they'd say, no, it's not going to happen because fossil fuel companies have too much power. They have too much lobbying power. The way it happened is local communities educating themselves, raising up their voices, insisting on the facts, talking about health, talking about water, talking about air quality and kids being affected by nausea, talking about property values, talking about real things that affect people, raising up those voices until the state passed the fracking ban. After the fracking ban, I don't know if you know Josh Fox. Josh Fox made the movie Gasland.
Oh.
He and I and a few others did a 17-town and village tour talking about how if we want to really ban fracking, we have to build renewable energy. We have to invest in geothermal and micro-hydro. And this area, the land of little rivers, this area is so prime for being a center of moving forward in solar and renewable energy, micro-hydro, and ground source heat. But again, it's people coming together in communities like this and talking. That's how we get change to happen. And then I also worked with parents and teachers, as I mentioned before, against Common Core on the opt-out movement. We haven't gotten everything we wanted, but it changed state policy. It changed federal policy. We got a long ways to go, but that wasn't some top-down organization that did it. That was people coming together, raising up the voices of people who've been shut out. But the core issue here is, why are people's voices shut out in the first place? We're supposed to have a democracy. And not to put too fine a point on it, but we have a corrupt system. Congress is gridlocked, but it's also corrupt. And it's not like Albany, where it's illegal corruption. It's legal corruption in Washington that is slowing us down and keeping us from where we should be. That is leading to this radical inequality that is taking away our jobs. And that legal corruption is the way we fund campaigns. I don't just mean super PACs and Citizens United. I do mean that. By the way, I was cited in dissent in Citizens United, so you know where I stand on Citizens United. I don't like it. We got to overturn Citizens United. We have an opportunity to do that with the new Supreme Court justice. But the core problem here is the way people raise money right now is, there's no other way to put it. It's crazy. You would never design a system like this. Does anybody know how much time a member of Congress spends raising, a typical member of Congress spends sitting in a little room, picking up a phone, walking through sheets of paper, calling the richest people they know, and trying to find a joke to make them laugh so they'll give them $2,000? What percentage do you think?
80%.
80%. You're a pessimist. You're no fun. It's between 30 and 70%.
Wow. See, I was close.
You were close. But think about that. There's nothing else that you do more than 30% of your time, whether it's research or constituent service. So your primary job, your first job, is sitting in a room talking to the wealthiest people you can find. That doesn't make any sense. That means then what the core qualification for office is, do you know a lot of rich people, or do you have policies that really suit a lot of rich people? That shouldn't be our qualification for office. I don't mind a random question in the middle.
So according to CBS News,
Yeah.
there's a Republican congressman from San Diego, I think, was saying, no, I won't play.
Yeah.
Because the pressure's coming from the parties, the Democratic Party telling the senators they have to do this, Republican Party. Are you gonna be one of the ones who's gonna say, no, I won't play for 30 hours a week on the telephone?
Well, I'm lucky because, and I don't think I'm a systemic answer. We have to change the system. We have to move to publicly financed elections. We have to do that. If you want that incredibly talented school secretary who knows everything about what's happening to be running for office, you need publicly financed elections. You can't ask her to know a bunch of millionaires. But here's how I'm doing it. I got to reach, in this district, I got to reach people when we've lost a lot of local media. It's not coming from the National Party, it's coming from my desire to reach your neighbor who might not read the Walton Reporter tomorrow, or I'm hoping there's a story. Right? It's actually, it's coming from my desire to reach Democrats, Republicans, independents. That's the push. I want to have a publicly financed system. I was a director of online organizing for Howard Dean's campaign in 2003. And I've done a lot of work in online organizing. So I actually know how to reach people and build a small donor base. And I have 30,000 donors right now, with an average donation of $40. So I am free to be here and listen to you. And when I'm in Congress, I will be free to be taking your call and not taking the call. Not to say that you don't have millions of dollars.
I don't.
Okay.
If I did, I wouldn't be here. I'd be a Republican.
It's actually been really important to me to build this campaign in a way that matches how I want to represent you in Congress, so that they're connected, they're not separate, so that I don't have to be, a year from now, I can be dealing with watershed issues, Common Core, renewable energy, broadband. Those are the things I should be working on. Jobs, not, what did he, last time I talked to him, I think he really said he cares about the flower garden and wherever. You know, it's just absurd. Our Congress members are becoming experts in rich people's lives instead of experts in the economy. It's a real problem. So back to this sort of core issue. I believe we need public financing of elections at every level. Every level. And I will push for it as I have pushed for it for decades. Because you want me to not have that fear in my eyes that there's some donor that's not going to like something I'm going to say. You can feel it. People don't want to vote for somebody who looks scared, right? Too many of our politicians look kind of scared. They get that glassy donor look. What if I say something wrong? And you know, part of the reason we don't have turnout is because people feel like politicians aren't as human or real. So I think we need public financing of elections for a whole bunch of reasons. I think we need to be very clear and name names when it comes to a handful of big companies that are trying to take over our politics as well. And we should call them the monopolies that they are. Time Warner, we don't have an option. There's in Verizon, Monsanto with seeds. In certain areas, you don't have a choice but to sell to Tyson or to Pilgrim. So you aren't a free chicken farmer if you basically are stuck with selling to one local monopoly. It's a problem across the board. We're seeing a radical collapse over the last 30 years where constant merger. And those companies are the companies that then turn around and spend their money on lobbying instead of spending their money on building a better widget. I really believe in markets. This is part of the reason I care so much about building the economy. I really believe in open markets. But you don't want your farmer who is, I don't know, your local dairy farmer to be thinking, what joke can I tell to crack up my local Congress member so I can get a grant? You want your farmer to be thinking, how can I use ground source heat to make my operation more effective? Look at Big Pharma for just one example. Big Pharma's firing chemists and hiring accountants to figure out how to get out of tax laws. I want to live in a world where pharma isn't overcharging us, but rather competing to actually produce the best product. So here's some ideas I have for this area, the things that I would push for that are grounded in things I've been working on for a long, long time. One is, whatever your economic development vision is, you might think it's sneakers, you might think it's garlic, you might think it's tourism on 28. All of those are great, but they all require